I really want to just spread the truth, let people know that their bodies can heal them and that there are amazing alternatives out there for everything that they're dealing with. And, just getting a diagnosis or just having a health issue isn't an end all be all. Like, you aren't stuck with that for life. Like, you can overcome it. You can become even healthier in your 50s than you were in your 20s.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Welcome to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. I am your host, Nick Thompson. Today, we are going to talk all about holistic health. I have an herbalist and the founder of Ancient Bliss supplement company, Macy Schuchart, on the show today. She is an expert on herbs and Eastern medicine and using those traditional Eastern herbs to help supplement our lives, help us get the minerals and the vitamins that we are sorely missing in our diets today. She actually spent 6 months in Hawaii living off of the land with a tribe of Indigenous people, where she took her education and enhanced it with real life experiences of these elders that were still living off the land and listening to their bodies and supplementing what's going on in their life with these herbs. So she is going to be a great guest, and I love talking about holistic health. I enjoy what I know about Macy, and let's get to that interview. Today, we have a wonderful guest who is an herbalist and the founder of Ancient Bliss supplements. We have Macy Schuchart on today. Macy, hi, how are you?
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me today. I'm super excited to chat.
Me too. You are new into this herbal world, and I can't wait to dive into that. I've actually been into it myself a little bit too recently, which is kind of interesting. The more you know, right? But before we get started, I want to ask you my favorite question to ask people, which is, what did you want to be when you were growing up, and how has that changed leading you to where you are now?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've been asked that in a really long time.
Well, you know why I like to ask that? Because it changes, and I find it so fascinating. Like, when you're a young kid, typically it's, the big, bold ideas or visions, and then it just slowly kind of like pushes you into capitalism over time. So I just like to hear people's story about that.
That is so true, and that definitely happened to me. So I remember as a kid, I wanted to help the polar bears and penguins. Super random.
That's awesome. Polar bears are one of my favorite animals. I love that.
Wow. And I also always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that was definitely always there. I actually had my first business when I was in 6th grade. It was called Smiley Sunshine, and I was selling Asian candy for like 4 times the price. I would beg my mom to take me to the Asian market and I would sell it on MySpace for 4 times the price, and people would buy it.
Do you know what's so funny? When I was probably 4th or 5th grade, I was the oldest kid in our neighborhood that would like play. There was probably like 10 or 15 kids. And so I was the only one that could cross the street. So I would always ride my bike, cross the main street, go to the drugstore, buy candy, and sell it for double the price.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, not 4 times. I wasn't robbing them blind, but
hey, you have to pay for shipping fees somehow.
All right. So you started off selling candy to kids on MySpace, and then that was your first venture into entrepreneurship.
It was. I had like a few other businesses down the road, but I didn't really take them that serious. And kind of what you said, I feel like capitalism just sucked me in. And it's interesting because when you're a kid, you believe in yourself so much. I was like, I got this. Like, I was shipping to Australia. I had my little thing going. And then you kind of grow up and you hear people telling you like, oh, that's not sustainable. You're not doing it right. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to get a job. And then so my wants in life really started to shift, but it wasn't really intuitive. It was more what the outside world was telling me.
Yeah, they do that. I remember I had lofty dreams too, and none of them were. All of them seemed to cost money, and none of them seemed to make money, which is the trend I still get myself sucked into, like with this podcast. But it's sometimes like that need to light up your brain that you just kind of go with it, or
Yeah,
find a way to go with it.
it's your mission. You have to do it.
Yeah. So you're an herbalist, right? When did you discover herbs, and what was your passion behind that?
I got really into natural health probably in my early 20s, just because I had a lot of health issues and I was going to see doctors. They were trying to put me on different pharmaceuticals, telling me different things. It was just super confusing. I also graduated school and didn't really know what I was going to do with my life.
What'd you go to school for?
I went to school for philosophy, but I ended up just taking a bunch of classes about like food and nutrition, and the philosophy behind it versus the science.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's interesting. What was the most fascinating learn there?
Our modern day nutrition courses and most colleges are still teaching the food pyramid that was taught to us like 50 years ago,
And
where
that was bought and paid for.
yeah, exactly, where it's sponsored by big business and you can eat a big bowl of fruity pebbles for breakfast and you're still in the food pyramid.
I know. I've told this story before. I won't, I won't really say it again. But one of the things for me, like I started learning about food through like toothpaste, which a lot of people know. Like I make my own toothpaste, but you go into it and you realize, whether it's through documentaries or doing your own research, that so much of what we eat, we have no idea what's in it. There's very little regulation around it. And it's very difficult to get information from like credible sources like the USDA or the CDC. And you find out like so many of these studies that, put together the food pyramid or say, you know, high fat is bad for you. They're all like bought and paid for studies by different industries. So like the push in, you probably know this, the push in of low fat items in the 90s and removing fat from your diet, that was all pushed by big sugar, for lack of a better word. And it was because they could sell these low fat items that tasted horrible unless you put a lot of sugar in them. So that's how you got low fat salad dressing that had double the amount of sugar. And it's just, you can't trust it, or it's very hard to find trustworthy sources, I feel.
Yes, exactly. And it's very confusing. Like you said, it's you go online, you see all these different things. A lot of it is done on purpose to confuse people.
Yeah.
And because if you're
Yep.
confused, then you just give up. And so a lot of people feel that there's no like hope, like because there's so much different information. Like how do you even know if it's right? And then it's easy to just fall back into old habits and not eat the right like foods.
I always say, I'm like, you can find an argument and a counter argument that on anything, and it's just to muddy the waters so no one knows what's actually true.
So true.
So you were food philosophy, the philosophy behind food. You were learning food pyramids bullshit. You were learning that a lot of these things that we're told and taught are actually not true. So where did you start to channel that? What was your first instinct to get into, this industry, I guess?
I went to Hawaii and I ended up living in a community village, commune, whatever you want to call it. And I had a couple of Hawaiian elders there that I like to consider my mentors because they truly taught me more than anything I've ever learned in my life. Even when I went on to go get my master's in herbalism, all of my knowledge comes from the Indigenous people that I learned from. And it wasn't even like, taught like an educational class. It was just them throwing out their comments every once in a while. And it really started to compound. And even just interacting with them and seeing the way that they live their life compared to our modern society and how they have such a close connection with the land, with the herbs they're using, with the food they're eating. It's like each specific herb that they're putting into their body has a specific healing property. And they're intuitively listening to their body and knowing, okay, I'm craving lemongrass, so I must have like an imbalance in my thyroid or whatever it may be, but they don't have to put all the science behind it. It's just an intuitive, beautiful knowing.
That is so cool. How did you find them?
Honestly, don't know. I really do feel like I manifested it. Um, I remember being on Google one day trying to figure out what I was going to do next in my life. And inwardly, I knew kind of what route I wanted to take. And somehow I ended up in a jungle with a bunch of Indigenous people. And
That is so cool.
it was not the Hawaii you would think about. It's not like being on like a white sand beach with, resorts and all that. There's still a lot of native land left and people living like the way that our native ancestors used to live. So
How long did you live with them? And what was this like? Was there no technology? Were you living off the land?
yeah, unfortunately we still had technology. It would be really cool if we didn't. We didn't have like TVs and stuff like that, but we still had our phones. But yeah, it was very natural. We peed outside. Like we were, I won't go into more details, but yes, it was very with the land. And we ate everything from the land. We cooked our own food. Work there was, like a couple hours a day of just like community building. And all of this was during COVID too. So there was just a lot of time to kind of learn from each other. And I was stuck there. So I really wanted to go home my first couple of weeks. I was like, I can't do this. But I
Oh my
ended up
God.
staying for 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Good for you. And you learned, what are some of the like key, I know you probably learned a ton, especially since it sounds like this is, a lot of what powers your business, but what were some of the key things that you learned or that you were able to overcome, especially since you wanted to leave at first?
It's that internal feeling of like being uncomfortable. And I feel like this a lot when I travel, but I think a lot of us can relate to this. You get somewhere and it just, something goes wrong or like you feel out of your comfort zone. I personally felt like my whole life I had been brainwashed to constantly be busy. And I got there and everyone just chilled. Like I was like, I have to do something.
Right.
We'd maybe spend like an hour a day like planting and then you just relax. And my mind was going crazy because I was just thinking so much. And I was so used to like, either like doing work or like studying or just doing something. So that was definitely challenging.
That I think anyone in our society here struggles with that. I mean, most people do. I do. I feel like if I'm not productive and I have some weird arbitrary things that mean I am or are not productive, sometimes just sitting in land or being in nature is productive. It's productive, but it's not monetized. So people don't think of it as being productive.
Definitely.
So when did you start to calm down and feel you are allowed to just be in nature or be with your tribe?
I think a lot of what I learned there that was very fundamental for me was that learning isn't necessarily just studying what's on paper in front of you or being productive or reading a long paragraph and being able to recite it. A lot of learning is coming from within you, and that can be activated through other people, through the land you're on, and through your external environment. And so I felt like the ocean and this native land was just feeding me so much intuitive knowledge and wisdom that I didn't feel like I needed to be productive because it was already within me. I was just remembering it.
You are a philosopher. That's really powerful. That's awesome. What were some of the things that you learned from like an herb perspective? Because you said you got your master's in
It was in herbalism.
herbalism. Okay. So you obviously had that knowledge in a sense, but then you're learning, as you said earlier, from like elders, and they have that more natural sense and they live this every day. What were some of the surprising things you learned?
I think what was most surprising was that people, the people I learned from were very preventative. And they didn't really talk about diseases or illnesses the same way we do. Like, they're not like, I have this condition, or this is unbalanced with my thyroid. It was more like whatever felt wrong in their body, they would fix with herbs, and they would do it usually before they knew something was wrong. And then also just the fact that our body has the beautiful ability to like heal itself naturally. It just needs the right nourishment and lifestyle changes. And that a lot of us are told, you have this illness, like for example, diabetes is on the rise. So you have diabetes and your insulin like no longer works. But with the right tools, you don't have to live with those symptoms forever, basically, in most cases.
I agree. I've through my own like self-discovery and the listening to your body that you mentioned earlier, that is such a learned skill. And I feel like people don't tune in. They just trust like, oh, here's this food that was approved by the government and, mass quantities made and shipped all over the place. And you don't think about anything else really, or listening to why you might feel the way you feel. So that is, and that's the thing, like there's supplements and there's so many things that we don't get that we should be getting from our food naturally, but we don't because everything's so processed, or we don't because the fruit you're eating is actually from last season and it's been preserved, and it's like all this stuff that's going on with the food, and you're just not getting the nourishment that we're supposed to be getting from what we consume and put in our body.
Yeah, that's so true. And unfortunately, it's not the people's fault. It's just we're at a time in life where we have to be super conscious of it in order to protect ourselves, because they're not out there protecting us.
No, they're out there protecting profits of chemical manufacturers and, factory farming and just all sorts of horrific ways that we process food, preserve food. I think I heard you say this on another podcast. Like, if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Pretty much.
Which is definitely the case. What did you guys eat when you were there aside from herbs? Did you eat meat? Did you eat plants? Was it a mix?
Just herbs.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
I was like,
Sorry.
I was like trying to square that in my head and didn't make sense. Okay.
No. But there were people that fasted for like 10 days. That was very common. I never did that. But
Wow,
they would fast
10 days.
10 days and they would still be working, like building buildings and just like hard work.
I intermediate fast. I actually try to eat only between like 3 and 8. I'm not very good at it, but like all the time, but that's what I try to do. And I feel so much better. But like by 3 o'clock, like probably after we're done here, I'm going to have to go eat something because I'm going to be shaking. I don't know how they do that.
Well, that's really good, intermittent fasting. Obviously, everyone's different. I think it's a bit different for females too, because of their hormones. Yeah, we basically just ate off the land because they didn't really have. There was like a natural like grocery store, but other than that, you didn't really go out to eat or like have other things imported in. And I think that's what makes these island indigenous communities so healthy, is that they are not being influenced and bombarded with all of these new products people are trying to push on them in the stores. And it's just like raw nutrients. Because the more we stick to whole foods, the more that our body knows how to process them.
Yeah, that's very true. And a lot of the stuff that you even think is healthy is not. Like, I've been gluten-free for 9 years now. And when I first went gluten-free, I was actually listening to my body. And that's when I realized like there was something wrong, because I wasn't eating, like I was pretty healthy, but like I would still feel like I wasn't. And I removed gluten and dairy, and I did it for 30 days. And then I felt so much better, but I didn't even realize I was feeling better until I tried to put it back in my diet. And then I was like, oh, this is what was causing bloating and discomfort. And, I always have trouble sleeping, but like, it got better. And if people like listen to those kind of things and start tying what they're doing with their food, what they're doing even with their supplements, they could really get in tune more. And you don't have to be perfectly in tune, but like just a little bit of what you're needing and what you're missing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I don't eat gluten or dairy as well. And
I eat dairy again, but I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't.
well, quality dairy is good for you.
Right. Right. Like Greek yogurt. I've been into Greek yogurt for the probiotics lately.
Yeah, that's great for you. And even like quality gluten is good for you. We've just gotten so far away from it. So have you heard of einkorn? I don't know if you've heard.
I have, but refresh my memory.
It is the ancient grain our ancestors used like tens of thousands of years ago, and it's still being used today in Italy. So a lot of people who are gluten intolerant, they'll go to Italy, eat the pasta and not feel bad, but it's because our gluten in America is glyphosatified. I don't think that's a word, but
Well, yeah, because it's all sprayed with, is it glyphosate? It's all
okay,
sprayed with glyphosate. Yeah, something, maybe I'm wrong. Someone will
glyphosate.
fact check it. Yeah. Whatever that chemical is, that's actually part of the drying process to dry the wheat so that they can process it into flour. So it's not just used as like an herbicide or insecticide. It's also used as part of the processing process. So you're just getting like this excess amount of inflammatory chemicals going into your gut. And I think anyone listening to this probably knows that the gut is tied to the brain and the brain is tied to the gut. So there's just so much going on there that, and you're putting this in your bloodstream. It's just, it can be so damaging to us.
And kind of like what you said about how you didn't even notice how you felt until you started incorporating those foods back in. I think starting is genuinely the hardest part. And once you start, you can see how good you feel when you're cutting out certain things like the chemicals and the additives and even like the littlest things like the gums that you see and certain yogurts or like processed foods. They really do interfere with the gut. And like you said, the gut is everything. So the more you can protect your gut, the better you're going to feel like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those things.
I completely agree. I want to ask you, you started Ancient Bliss with about a year ago, if I understand correctly. How did that all tie into your trip to Hawaii, where you spent 6 months? And what prompted you? Because supplements, they're not. You have high quality supplements. That's what I'm looking at. I'm holding CMOS right now. And maybe we can start with that one because that's the one I'm most curious about. I just learned about CMOS a few months ago, and I've been looking for a supplement to start with, and I had like no idea. And then I saw yours after you reached out to me on Instagram, and I was very I mean, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually legit. This is high quality. I look at the ingredients on here. There's nothing like rice flour. I can pronounce everything.
It's organic.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to finally get on board with this. So I'm curious, before we get into like the specifics of what benefits you can achieve, how did you get to that point where like, this is the route I'm going to go? I'm going to tap into my entrepreneurial tendencies and I'm going to start a herbal supplement company.
Yeah. So it was super messy, the path. It wasn't like I just came back and was like, all right, I got an idea. Let's go. I came back. I did my master's after Hawaii. I actually never even finished my master's. I don't know why I'm saying that. I didn't do it the last course. I was just like, okay, whatever. Because I felt like I had learned what I needed. And I ended up getting back into the corporate world because it was after COVID. My parents were like, you need to get a job. And so I was like, okay. I started working a sales job and it was a very crummy job. There's so many things wrong with it. We weren't really getting paid our commissions. It was just super male dominated, just not the best, atmosphere, barely making money too. And it was a job though for companies who go to trade shows. So I was constantly reaching out to these companies and helping them get on trade shows. And I realized, okay, if all these people have a business, I could probably do this too. And I started slowly building it during my job. I started playing around with the logos. I actually have the logo inspired from Pele. She's the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes.
And for those watching, I'm gonna show. This is the logo. It is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, and it's the goddess on Big Island, so she represents transformative energy, so being able to take control of your health. I started playing around with everything. I knew I really wanted to help people in modern day society really take care of their health in a way that wasn't so like elongated. I don't know if that's the right word. Because a lot of people, like they steep the herbs, they make the teas, they go pick them from the garden. And that takes a lot of time. And a lot of people have really busy lives. So I started thinking about supplements and finding a way to kind of incorporate these healing herbs that could really nourish people's bodies, since we do live in a very nutrient deficient world. And being able to give these to people without additives or fillers, because that was something I noticed at the time. A lot of them have those and they block absorption. So,
And it's unregulated, so that's why, like, when I look at your ingredients here, and I'm like, there's literally nothing else. That is a testament to the quality. And you've got the standard approvals and stuff too. So I think that's awesome that you recognize that gap in the market.
thank you. Yeah, it was super important to me. And I really wanted to help people. I started kind of seeing in my life, I started noticing this trend that diabetes was very common in my life. A lot of people in my family had it. A lot of people I was interacting with had it. It was on the rise. I think now it's like 1 in 3 people have diabetes or prediabetes. And so I kind of just had this idea. I started getting really into manifestation, reading all the books on manifestation. And one of the common things is, have your end goal in mind, like have what you want to do in mind, but don't think about how to get there. Just have that thought and that vision and hold it in your mind's eye until it comes true. And so I just knew I wanted to help people with diabetes, and I wanted to help people heal naturally. And I wanted to have my own business so I didn't have to work a 9 to 5. And
which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I happened to be at a trade show one day. I met my current manufacturer, and everything kind of just spiraled from there. They knew exactly what products for me to use, how to do it, and they really helped me like get my way in. And yeah, it's been a huge success, and I'm super excited to help people.
Tell everyone a little bit about berberine. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Was that your first product?
It was one of them. It was like my third product.
Okay. How did you decide which products then?
I am really into herbs myself, so I kind of just started to figure out which herbs I really liked and which made a huge difference in people's health. And berberine is one of those that is a natural alternative to metformin or insulin, which is a common diabetes drug. And it has really helped people get off of these other pharmaceuticals that can have really bad side effects for certain people, and are also expensive. So
yeah, we're a society of take your pills, quick fixes. So it's even, I have a lot of people in my life too that suffer from diabetes. And I'm going to be sharing all of this information with them because they're like stuck with, insulin. They're stuck with medicine. And once you're on it, like you're now masking the actual cause of what's going on, and you're not supplementing yourself. So you're up against big pharma. How do you, how do you feel about that?
I love it. I think Western medicine can still be very beneficial in people who have certain conditions. Like Western medicine is very helpful. It's a great tool. I just think that blending Western with Eastern is very powerful, and Eastern medicine can be very preventive. And I think that a lot of doctors are not giving people the option to take Eastern medicine.
Mm-hmm. They're not versed in it. Here's the thing, like doctors are trained in medicine. They're not trained in health and wellness. So that's always going to be, a challenge, especially here, I think. So having, experts like yourself and others in the more holistic space is growing, but it's also helping blend the preventative or Eastern and the Western, where maybe we can stop some of these things from happening that you need medicine for, Western medicine for, and prevent them in the first place through, just helping your overall wellness.
Exactly. And the body is an amazing self-healing machine. And if you give it the right nutrients, your body knows exactly what to do with it. It can heal itself. It's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. So you now have, what do you have, 6 products now? Do you want to walk through, some of the use cases and the benefits?
I'll just go over some of the most popular ones. So obviously berberine, it's great for blood sugar balance. It's really good for SIBO, it's called. So people who have bloating and gut problems.
Oh, okay.
SIBO is one of the main causes of IBS. So I know IBS is really huge right now, but IBS is caused by an invasion of bacteria. And so what berberine does is it acts as a natural antibiotic that doesn't kill the good bacteria. It only kills the bad bacteria.
That I did not know. I also read that it helps with high blood pressure. Do you know anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've had amazing testimonials from people telling us it just really helped their blood pressure, lower their cholesterol, help their blood sugar, all of these great things. So I really love that herb. I think out of most herbs in general, it's one of the most powerful ones that you can see an immediate result from.
That's amazing. And I saw some of your testimonials too, and it looks like some people have been using it almost since your existence and are still experiencing the benefits, which is outstanding.
Yeah.
What about sea moss? Because I've read a lot about sea moss over the last few months. And then I as I said earlier, I bought it to try it out. What am I in? Maybe 2 weeks with it. So what about sea moss? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So all of my supplements are based off of what our ancestors used to use. So especially in the Caribbean regions, sea moss is a really powerful multivitamin. And instead of it being synthetic vitamins, it's vitamins that come naturally from the sea. So if you think about it, we're mostly water beings. We're made up of mostly water. And there's actually 2 plants. And these are the 2 plants in the whole world that when you take them both together, you get all 102 minerals that your body needs to function. So that's sea moss and bladderwrack. And when you combine those 2, you now have all your minerals. And because of what we talked about with the food supply and pesticides and all of these new things, our soil is obviously changing. We're very mineral deficient as a society, and these can lead to things, like bone problems, fatigue, thyroid issues, lack of energy, low libido, all of these things. So that's why I really love sea moss. It's kind of considered the islander's secret. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard the people in the Caribbean are really good lovers. It's because they take sea moss.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm on it then. That's awesome. I had no idea. That's why
It's
they were
Yeah, it's great for energy and libido. So
very nice. How would someone get this without a supplement? You can't, right?
you can get it from the sea, and a lot of people make gel out of it.
I got very confused. This was one of the reasons I was paralyzed in picking what to do or what sea moss to buy, because I had creams, I saw supplements, I forget some of the other ones, and I had no idea.
No, as you should though, because it's also a new trend to grow them in pools in China. So you always want to make sure you have wild harvested sea moss to get the right benefits.
China, yeah. What they find a way to do everything a little bit cheaper and a little more dirty, I feel like. Now, we're guilty too in this country, but China's they're on top of that stuff.
Well, we're funding them and buying it from them, so
Oh, totally, totally. And we outsourced our entire economy to them. So,
literally.
and now we're like shocked that they have so much power. And it's, yeah, anyway, we don't need to get into any of that. But,
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
right, right. So, what are some of the benefits that you can get with sea moss, like outside of becoming an amazing lover?
It's great for energy. It's also really good for thyroid health. So a lot of people have thyroid issues. This is what can cause fatigue. And again, it's not really people's fault. Like they're not doing anything wrong. It's just our food has changed so much that we have all these endocrine disruptors. So even like just the plastics in our water bottles and the like clothes we wear have certain, chemicals on them. And all of these can mess up our thyroid functioning, our hormone health, all of those things. And it's also really good for fertility and hormone health as well. But infertility is a pretty big problem now too in the upcoming generations and in this world. And it's because of these chemicals that are everywhere.
That's scary. Have you ever seen the movie Children of Men?
I haven't.
Oh, well, I know we messaged a little bit about movies, so you should watch it. It stars Clive Owen, and the premise is there hasn't been anyone pregnant, I think, for 16 years in the whole world. And it's kind of apocalyptic in a sense of, what society is like when we think the end is imminent. But it's just interesting, like look at the world when you think about I know I have multiple friends that have fertility challenges, and it's like, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for a number of reasons. And we're just cycling along. We're not looking at the underlying causes of these things. And we're trying to develop, new medicine, and new procedures and stuff to help, I guess, keep our population going. It's so sad.
Yeah, because it's like our life force is our energy, our libido, our ability to reproduce, all of these things. And then you go to the doctors and like they don't know what to do. They're just like, oh, it's genetic, or I like don't even get into genetic. I feel like a lot of genetic is
bullshit.
I think some things they say like 5%, of our population has birth defects or certain genetic things that they're born with. But I do believe that telling a patient that something is genetic, they're prone to have it, is super problematic because we tend to attract what we believe. And by having someone else put a false idea in yourself is just not okay,
Well, it's if you think about it and this is how I think about genetics. I could be, so my family struggles with weight. There's some thyroid issues, all the stuff that we've kind of talked about. And I can see there's certain things that are genetic, but I also like eat healthy. I exercise at least 5 times a week, almost every week, if not more. I walk. I hit 15,000 steps a day, no matter what. And I'm theoretically predisposed to all this stuff. I don't have these issues. I mean, I wish, that in some way, like I know my metabolism's kind of slow, but that could also be from like these built-in habits that I grew up with, or that, my parents had, eating the processed foods in the 80s and 90s and all of this stuff, where it kind of like predisposed me to those behaviors and some of the genetic changes that have happened over, the last 100 years since everything's become processed.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, is genetics a learned behavior, or, I don't know. I think it's a good question to ask, because you're right. When you tell someone they're predisposed to it, you immediately put them into being a victim. Mm-hmm. And that's where you accept it. You're like, okay, I'm just going to have diabetes. Okay, I'm just predisposed to have thyroid issues. Okay, I'm just going to be overweight. It's very concerning.
It's like a psychic telling you, yeah, like, oh, you're going to die tomorrow. Like, well, obviously you probably wouldn't believe that. But if they tell you you're going to die, at a certain age, like, you don't want to know that. And how do we know they're right, you know?
Right. Psychics kind of, I mean, I like it, but they kind of creep me out
Me
in a
too.
way too. Yeah. And I am like, I'm actually been told I'm part psychic. I believe I'm part psychic, but like, I don't want to tap into that. And there's like, by me, there's this psychic, like, that's been there. You can tell for God knows, like years, decades. I don't even like walking in front of that place because I always get goosebumps and it gives me the willies. So I like will cross the street to not walk directly in front of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's okay. You're here having a human experience. So, you know, maybe you don't want to tap into all of those things. It's up to you.
Good point. Very good point. So this has been echoed and redlined through our entire conversation. You really want to help people live healthier lives and nourish their bodies in the ways that they should be getting from all of the knowledge that you learned, obviously through your schooling and then your time in Hawaii. Where do you, what are your goals like moving forward with Ancient Bliss and for you personally?
I'm still trying to figure that out, I guess, but I really want to just spread the truth. I think the truth is so important, and just inspire people to really take charge of their own health and to let people know that their bodies can heal them and that there are amazing alternatives out there for everything that they're dealing with. And, you know, just getting a diagnosis or just having a health issue isn't an end all be all. Like, you aren't stuck with that for life. Like, you can overcome it. You can become even healthier in your 50s than you were in your 20s. And just getting rid of these false ideas, these false belief patterns within people. Even just like what we were talking about with genetics, like, I know like my mom personally is scared of getting Alzheimer's because her mom had it. But what like we don't talk about is like the fact that her parent, you know, had like mercury when she was growing up at the doctor's office because they thought that that was normal for like cough medicine. And
Right.
she was eating like Pop-Tarts and all these different foods with chemicals, and there's all these different factors to it too. And I think just like helping people learn that it's not your genetics, it's your environment, and you have the ability to change that. You can heal yourself. It's all within you. Like,
That is so true. And you said that much more concise than I did right before that. It is. It's your
you were
environment.
getting
Your
there.
environment. Yeah, I was getting there. The environment plays such a big part in what you do. And so you have a product called Liver Detox. The nutritionist community tried to cancel me a few months ago for talking about detoxing your liver. And yeah, there were like a bunch of I
Canceled.
had yeah, I mean I literally just made like an elixir with lemon juice because I make a lot of my own products. I'm very much into my health and what I put in my body and what I spray to clean and you know the soaps I use and you know I make my own body wash. I make my own hand soaps. I do. I have vices, so don't get me wrong. Like I love you know like mayonnaise, for example. Like I know it's horrible for you, but I love it. But I try to do as much as I can like that. And so there were a couple like remixes of reels where I was talking about like, hey, here's how you can detox your liver. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on you know liver detox and what's the role that that plays in your supplement plays?
It's really interesting you say that because I am having trouble as well advertising. So every other product that's fine on Amazon and Walmart and these different platforms that we sell on. But when it comes to the word detox and even the word liver, they do not like it. They will flag it. They'll take it down. My listing gets taken down.
Jeez.
And I don't understand why.
So the reason that I got canceled or tried to get canceled in the health, which by the way, like I don't give a fuck if I get canceled in like the traditional health community. Those are not my people. But you know, what happens with the liver is you can get fatty liver. You can damage it with alcohol, damage it with any pills and food that we take. It's all very hard on liver. Even ibuprofen is very hard on the liver. And what some of these supplements can do is help flush your liver. So if you want to use the word, maybe it should be liver flush. I don't know. But, you know, if you want to, you know, get picky on words, that's fine. But like the liver is not immune to everything. And people act like it is. People get liver cancer. People get liver diseases.
It's very true. And I think what inspired me to make the supplement was I thought this was so cool, but they had milk thistle, and I think we all know milk thistle is really good for the liver. But in Hawaii, they had milk thistle as just like seeds that you could get at like the local store. And the people around me, I remember this one girl I was living with, like she would go and get the seeds and just like chew on them like during the day. And I was like, that's so cool. You were protecting your liver because like you said, there's so many different things that we use, our cleaners, our beauty products, whatever they may be. And we all have vices, and that's totally fine. I have vices. We all do, and we can't
now
be
you got
perfect.
to share one of your vices too.
Okay, my vice is red wine for sure.
Oh, that's not a vice.
Okay, but
No,
I like
kidding,
drink it all the time.
I do too.
Every
I've
night.
been into rosé. I know, me too. Especially these days.
That was what inspired me to create the liver supplement, because I think just preventative care is so powerful. I think every little thing we do to love our bodies, it will love us back just a little bit more. And I think that's really fun and powerful.
So is milk thistle the only ingredient in the liver detox?
Yeah, there's some other ones. And when you look at these herbs, like they kind of all do the same thing. So like my gut support supplement and my liver supplement are both like good for each other. You could take the liver supplement for gut health. You could take the gut supplement for like kidney health. They're all herbs that clean the blood, basically. And having clean blood makes everything easier on the rest of your body.
You told me a little bit ago that you are expanding. You're looking to expand with Ancient Bliss. So are you global, or are you going to try and be global? You're just in the US right now, I think, right?
Yeah, we're just in the US. We are going to be in India very, very soon.
Congratulations.
And everything else is in process because it's very hard to get approved in Canada and like all these other places. It's very hard. And I don't know why. I guess it's because supplements are more like regulated there. I don't really know, but
yeah, they are more regulated, and you have to like here they're like not regulated really at all. Like you're going and you're getting you just got an organic certification too, right? You're going out and proactively getting certifications that aren't required, but then guarantee that you're actually doing what you say you're doing with your supplements.
Yeah. And I think like supplements have to be FDA approved, but in GMP certified like facility, but a lot of them aren't third party tested. And I think that's so crazy, honestly.
What do you mean third party tested?
Third party testing is where you run it through different machines to make sure there's not heavy metals or anything that, isn't what says is on the bottle, stuff like that. It's kind of just like a more intensive testing process. And a lot of these supplements on Amazon just aren't like, they don't even have that, which is really crazy to me, because you could be drinking like something with like arsenic in it or something. I don't know.
Right. What is some advice? So I mean, I just remember just before we talked today, my sister texted me, and this is how I, brought up the berberine. She's like, my friend has high blood pressure and she wants to try some things before going on medication. And so I shot over some things that I try to do regularly to help manage that stuff. But what I told her was, I'm like, you've got to look at the ingredients, because you may find a cheaper version of it, but it's going to be, I keep saying rice powder because that's the one that just always sticks out in my head as literally a filler. And what should people look for when they are looking at supplements on the labels?
Yeah. So that's a great question, because it took me a while to figure out. I kind of had the food thing down, but I didn't really understand supplements until I started researching it for myself. And I was like, oh my gosh. But you really don't want anything with additives or fillers, because it wreaks havoc on the gut biome, and it's also preventing it from being absorbed into the body. So any sort of filler like magnesium stearate, silicon dioxide, titanium dioxide, these different ingredients, basically back to anything you can't pronounce.
Good rule of thumb.
Yeah, to look out for those. And then depending on the supplement, sometimes you want to have something that can help it absorb. So like bioprene helps supplements absorb into the bloodstream, ECG, green tea extract, different things. So you can kind of research whatever supplement you're trying to take and say like the most absorbable forms and kind of figure out the nitty gritties of it.
And one thing I just want to caution people to think about too is when you are Google, because you have to Google, you have to research. Like everybody has to do their own research, and you need to get all sides of the equation. But keep in mind that when you are researching some of these supplements that are like berberine, which are providing the same benefits as a pharmaceutical, there's going to be propaganda out there that is telling you this is dangerous or you shouldn't do this without, and you should not, this is not medical advice by any means, but you should not, swap out a medication for a supplement without working with your doctor first. That's not what I'm saying, but like, just keep in mind that you will find, propaganda out there that tries to discredit, something in nature versus made in a lab.
Definitely.
So cool. This has been really great. So now I would like to give you the opportunity to ask me any questions that you have about me, I guess, or
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm super interested because I think it's really cool that you're so into health and wellness, and talking to you, you know a lot for sure. I guess like I'm curious about your journey. Like, what made you get into wellness, and how do you think it differs being like a male versus a female, like in a wellness journey? Because I know personally I have a lot of like female like issues more so, and I work with more females. So,
oh, that is a really, really good question. So mine started with toothpaste, which I can't remember if we were recording or I mentioned that before, but mine started with toothpaste. My friend told me, you should look at the ingredients in your toothpaste and start researching them. And so I started researching that. I started making my own toothpaste, and I noticed my teeth were getting whiter. I noticed that I was not having like, you get like bad breath after a meal. Like I wasn't having any of that unless I had something extreme like a garlic or a curry or a very strong spice. And as I was researching this stuff, and I realized like all the studies proving fluoride is safe for consumption, that these foaming agents are okay to incorporate into toothpaste. And I started saying like, if they're doing this in the toothpaste industry, what else is going on? So then I started researching factory farming. I stumbled into that. Obviously like Monsanto, which is now, by the way, purchased by Bayer, all got approved. So now they own you from chemical all the way through medicine at the end, chemicals to your food, and then they will sell you the cure later. And as I researched into this stuff, I realized like, holy cow, there is not really a whole lot I can trust here. I even went down the rabbit hole of how serious can we take like the organic label or the non-GMO label, because GMOs are another thing that terrify me. And you get the propaganda from Monsanto about GMOs, how we feed the world. No, you're not feeding the world with GMOs. You're profitizing off of being able to produce more for less. And so, and by the way, continue to like with corn, like we put it in everything. Why? Because we produce it cheap, and it's got so many pesticides on it that it's practically insecticide. So it's awful what they do. And so as I did more and more, and I realized we can't trust anything, a lot of documentaries, read a lot. I've talked to a lot of people that were, into holistic medicine. My cousin is a holistic nutritionist. So I just started like really getting into this and realizing that like I can't trust really anything. And, I would read things like, oh, Monsanto's lobbying the USDA to like lower the restrictions on organic. So I'm like, you can't trust any of it. And there isn't an institution that isn't at least bought and paid for in the sense of, for example, the food industry, they're the ones that are actually running the tests to see if these pesticides are safe. Okay, well, they have a profit-driven reason to show that these are safe. So anyway, that's my journey into there. As a, and I told you earlier, I haven't practiced yoga in a few weeks because I'm doing some other exercising, but like just getting in touch that way, practicing yoga is one of the things that like as a man has been so different than now I know some more men that do yoga, but like just from like a flexibility and a comfort perspective, like having those conversations where I can like touch my toes. Like most dudes in my life can't touch their toes, believe it or not. So there's like the physical element like that. Everyone says I'm high maintenance with my food, which is probably true. There's a lot of things that I've removed from my diet. And then I have some cognitive dissonance with some things as well. But I think that's kind of, with men, that's kind of part of it, is like the societal almost pressure to just eat meat and potatoes and, lift a lot of weights and like all of this stuff and not do like the mental piece of it as well. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that we're expected to be like, women are really expected to be very feminine and men are expected to be very masculine. And
what
in
is
reality, in reality, like we should have like different aspects of both of these things. And have you like, so I guess you were saying you struggled with the people like judging you kind of for like being into wellness and stuff. Why do you think that like happens?
So I think there's a couple things that go on there. And this is actually men and women in some instances. People, they don't want to know like what's going on with the food. I've had plenty of friends that are like, I just can't know. I just don't want to know. Well, let me tell you why I don't eat chicken. Okay. Like this is happening. Like I'm not making this up. And here, why you shouldn't, just drink a tall glass of processed pasteurized milk. Like there's so many different things that I think people just don't want to know. And then I think there's also some elements of people, they know, but they don't want to do it. And they don't want to make that change. It's like cold showers. I'm 3 weeks into taking cold showers every morning, and it was something I knew I should be doing for years. And I just didn't because I didn't want to deal with it. And so I think that applies to why people, you have to do it. You have to do it. I can tell you, just start small. I started with 15 seconds and I'm up to today. Before we chatted here, I did 75 seconds.
Wow. Do you feel like it really helps you?
I am sharp as soon as I'm done. And today, today I took it a little bit later because I think I told you I had to go get my taxes done. But I did it a little bit later today, and it like alerted me for this conversation right here. And I was kind of a little foggy because I'm not analytical, and like listening to all of the tax stuff kind of hurt my brain. But yeah, no, it definitely helps. But people don't. They don't want to face it, and it's hard. And they have been like, we've all been propagandized our whole life on food and everything, but like really food. And it's hard to unlearn patterns. It's hard to face it. And I think people just project a little bit of their uncertainty or discomfort around it onto people that do it, or people that are conscious of what they eat or conscious of how they treat their bodies. And the whole masculine thing, like, I've been hearing that my whole life. Like there's plenty of masculine qualities that I have that, you can have and also do yoga and eat healthy. It's just so silly.
Well, health should be a masculine quality because if you look at life, like primally, like men were healthy and you would naturally be attracted to someone with like health. So,
yeah. Totally agree.
So like besides cold showers, is there any other tips like you really found, or like throughout your journey, did you have any like challenges? And then do you have any like tips or like the main things that you do, rituals that make you feel really like healthy and alive?
Yeah. So the cold showers is my new one. It's not always easy, and I eat bad food. I eat pizza once a week. I just can't help it. So there's hiccups. And honestly, last week I had a burger and pizza in the same day, and I don't feel bad about it. But my point is that like, you got to give yourself a little bit of grace, I think. And that's one of the things that I allow myself to do is I'm like, you can eat bad sometimes. You can skip a workout if you're not feeling it that day, or just, what I find helps is like start small with something and don't try to boil the ocean because you will not be successful. So starting with the cold shower, 15 seconds, I'm up to 75 seconds. I had a couple days in there where I couldn't make it as far as I did the day before, but then the next day I was able to get a couple more seconds added on. But that's okay because this is the journey. So it's the same thing. If you're trying to start your health and wellness journey, whether it's through physical exercise, whether it's through what you consume, start small, pick one area and really focus on that. Like I have plenty of times I've screwed up, failed, whatever. And I just show myself some grace. It was learning. You were learning. You were learning that it's, at the very least, it's okay to mess up sometimes. I also am a big, so I drink a lot of coffee, but I drink black coffee in the morning. I don't sweeten it or put anything in it. That's a ritual for me. Every few days, I make the elixir with apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, which I know you don't like apple cider vinegar. I heard you say that in one of your things, but you can make it taste better with a little bit of lemon juice, and if you need it, honey or a tiny bit of maple syrup, and you can mix that up, and that'll be that's good for your gut. Provides all sorts of benefits to your liver, and it's something I don't recommend doing every day because it can be harsh. But I do that probably three times a week, and then intermittent fasting. This is listening to your body again. I tried the 5 meal a day thing after never eating breakfast really growing up before school because I always felt sluggish. And so I tried doing like the 5 meal a day thing and I felt sluggish. I was hungry all day. And, I realized like my body just doesn't want food in the morning. So why am I forcing it? Because someone said you have to have 3 to 5 meals a day, So I think like just listening a little bit and trying different things, it has been the biggest success for me. And then if you're not sure, like there's still times now where I'm like, I just want gluten. And you can get a lot of gluten-free stuff now. When I started, it was basically like Udis and lettuce. That was all you could eat.
Udis is the worst.
Oh God, it's so bad. It's so bad. So that I would say that those are my big rituals. And I walk, like I mentioned, 15,000 steps a day, minimum, because movement is the most underrated thing I would say for your mental health. When I get anxious, when I get stressed, when I am depressed, I move. And that has been a tool that has helped me in so many ways.
And I know you said
sea moss in the morning.
No. Of course. I know you said you had problems sleeping, and I feel like I have problems sleeping as well. Do you think, because I find that when I walk,
that's the ritual, the red wine.
Red wine for sure, but it still doesn't always do it. Do you find that when you walk, because I notice when I walk, I feel like I just sleep better.
Oh, I bet you do, because you're expelling energy. So one thing that is very good for me is if I'm like at a friend's house or I'm somewhere at night and I walk home and I go right to bed, I do sleep. I fall asleep quicker. Yeah. And I don't really fall asleep fast. I have, trouble falling asleep. I have trouble staying asleep.
Me too.
I don't even know. It sucks. It's like the one thing that I wish I could be better at. And I haven't been able to learn how to sleep.
I think that putting a lot of importance on it makes it worse, but I do this too. But I'm like, oh my God, I hope I sleep tonight. And then it makes it worse. Whereas the days where I just don't even think about it, I'm just like, whatever. Or I'm with a friend and I don't think about my sleep. I just sleep. It's so weird.
That makes sense though, right? Because you're just letting your body do it instead of your mind controlling it.
Yeah. But they say meditation is way more powerful than sleep, and that the whole purpose of sleep is just deep breathing. So if you ever can't sleep, just meditate.
I can't meditate either.
I know. It's honestly harder than sleeping.
I know. Sometimes I try to convince myself that I'm meditating when I'm walking, and I'll do tech-free walks. That's another one where I'll just go outside and I won't have headphones. I won't bring my phone. I will take my watch because I want to count the steps, but I won't check it. I won't do anything with it. I'll just let it be my pedometer. So that's a good one too. And that's the closest to meditation I think I get.
Walking meditation's real, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So where can people find you and follow you on your socials, and where can people find your products?
Yeah, so you can find our products on www.ancientbliss.com, and our Instagram is just ancient.bliss. Our TikTok is ancient.bliss. We're probably the most active on Instagram. We just do a lot of health and wellness tips. We're really big on like blood sugar and hormone health, fertility, PCOS, all of those things. So if you want to learn some more, we have really good content there.
I've learned a lot from your content. Your content is awesome. And
Aw,
yeah, no, it really, and it's so simple and easy to understand. It's like, here's the 3 benefits of sea moss. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, okay, cool. That, it's super easy to consume. So I highly recommend it. All of those links are going to be in the description. And of course, as always, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I thought this was an excellent conversation.
yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from your content as well. And yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.